All right, welcome everyone. Look, as future IT auditors, there's one thing you absolutely have to get into your heads. Data is everything. It's the crown jewels of any company you'll ever set foot in. And today we're diving deep into the vault where it's all kept, the database. Think of this as your essential briefing before you head out into the real world. So let's jump right in. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to expose a massive vulnerability, what I call the ultimate system backdoor. Then, we'll build up our defenses with the 4 pillars of control. After that, we'll play detective and figure out who holds the keys, then learn how to guard the blueprints of the system. And finally, we'll see how it's all one big interconnected ecosystem.
Okay, let's cut right to the chase. What's the real problem here? Well, think about this. Companies pour millions, literally millions, into fancy application controls. But what if I told you all that effort, all that money, could be completely useless? Because if the database underneath it all isn't locked down, none of it matters. The database, you see, is the final line of defense. It's the bedrock.
So I want you to put your auditor hat on for a second. Picture this. You're on a big audit, looking at a huge ERP system, something like SAP or Oracle. The application itself seems solid. It's got all the right controls, like the classic 3-way match for payments. So you'd think the financial data is safe, right? Well, the truth might make you a little uncomfortable. The answer is probably not. And this right here shows you exactly why. The application layer, that's the front door. It's got all the guards and the rules, all the business logic. But someone with the right keys, like a database administrator, doesn't need to use the front door. They can just stroll around to the back door. And with one simple line of code, boom, they can change a payment from pending to approved. They've just waltzed past every single control you thought was protecting the system. This, right here, is the core risk you're hunting for. Okay, so how in the world do we lock down that back door? The answer is a framework you're going to get very familiar with, IT General Controls, or GITCs for short. Think of these as the fundamental rules of the road, the bedrock that creates a secure environment for every single application that touches that database. Now, GITCs are usually broken down into these 4 big areas. And what I love about this is how we can take these kind of abstract ideas and map them directly to real things in the database. Logical access, that's just a fancy way of asking who can get in. Change management, that's who's allowed to change the system's blueprints. IT operations is all about can we get back up and running after a disaster. And logging and monitoring, well, that's our detective work. Who did what and when. These are the 4 pillars that will be the foundation of our audit. All right, let's dive into the first pillar, and honestly, it's the big one, access controls. When you're auditing this area, your entire job really comes down to one single critical question. Who has the keys to the kingdom? And this quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? The DBA, the database administrator, these folks have unbelievable power. And if that power isn't checked, if it isn't monitored, well, every other control you test is basically worthless. So, to fight back against this risk, we use a core security concept, the principle of least privilege. It's a simple idea, really. You only give people the bare minimum access they need to do their job, nothing more. Your job as the auditor is to make sure they're actually sticking to that rule. Okay, enough theory. Let's talk about the real world. One of the single biggest mistakes companies make is failing to remove accounts when people leave. This creates what we call ghost accounts. And let me tell you, these ghost accounts are like an open invitation for hackers. So, how do we go ghost hunting? This is your classic audit playbook, and it is incredibly powerful. Step 1. You go to the database itself and pull a complete list of every single user account. Step 2, you go over to HR and get their official list of everyone who's been terminated. Step 3 is the magic. You compare those 2 lists. Any name that's on the database list and on the HR termination list, that's a ghost. And that, my friends, is a major control failure that you write up immediately. Okay, next pillar, change management. So if access control was all about who has the keys, then change management is all about protecting the blueprints to the entire kingdom. It's what keeps the very structure of our controls safe and sound. And the absolute bedrock principle here is something called segregation of duties, or SOD. It is a super simple concept, but it is 100% non-negotiable. It means the person who builds the change can't be the same person who deploys the change into the live system. You just can't have the same person doing both. It prevents one person from sneaking something nasty or just plain wrong into production.
And this visual just nails the point. On one side, you have a controlled change. It's a proper assembly line. Developer to tester to DBA to production. Checkpoints all the way. On the other side, chaos. An uncontrolled change is just a developer pushing a button and sending their code straight into the wild. That's not a path. That's a freeway to disaster. Now, look, when a company's change process is weak, you can bet that unauthorized changes are slipping through the cracks. It's not a matter of if, but when. So the million-dollar question for you, the auditor, is how do you catch them? This is where you put on your detective hat. You dig into the database's native audit logs, and you're hunting for specific clues, powerful commands that change the very structure, like create, alter, or drop, or commands that change who can do what, like grant and revoke. And for every single one of those you find, you follow the paper trail. You have to trace it back to an approved change request ticket. If you find a change in that log with no ticket, jackpot. You've just found a massive breakdown in their controls. Okay, let's pull it all together now. It is so important you understand that these controls don't live on their own little islands. They're not silos. They're a tightly woven ecosystem. Think of it like a house of cards. If you pull out one single card from the bottom, the whole thing can come crashing down. Let me walk you through a nightmare scenario that shows exactly how this happens. See how a failure in just one area, change management, can cause a total system meltdown. It all starts with one tiny, unauthorized change. That one bad change is used to give someone, say a developer, God mode access, sysadmin privileges. Just like that, every single access control you so carefully audited is now completely worthless. And what's the first thing they do with their new superpower? They go in and shut down the audit logs. They're essentially covering their tracks, making themselves invisible, which means a massive, catastrophic data breach could be happening, and the company would be completely blind to it. Do you see? A failure in one pillar, change management, just took out all the others. Game over. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Now that you know how interconnected all this is, how one weak link can break the entire chain, if you walked into a brand new audit tomorrow, which of these pillars would you test first? And more importantly, why? Think about it. Where do you start to get the biggest bang for your buck, the most assurance? Answering questions like that, that's not just about passing an exam. That's what's going to make you a great auditor.